Good afternoon and welcome to 365 Days of Stories, Amazing Stories with Theo Mera. Here we are on day 108, and I'm continuing the story of He Wins Who Waits. So remember, our youth, the widow's son, had agreed to be dropped down into the well to try to get water for the 80 merchants and their camels. And so they lowered him down into the well, promising to give him a great sum of money for doing so. And down he goes. And when he gets down there and he's just about to drink some water because he himself is thirsty, this very big Arab comes out of the dark, asks him who he is, and then tells him to follow him. And so our youth gets up and follows the Arab into a hall that is well lit and quite beautifully decorated. And he has two sons there as well with him. Now, one very important thing happened as our youth was leaving his hometown. His wife had told him that as he was leaving, by the road that he was going out, there would be a well. And sitting by that well would be an old man. And she advised him to go by him and stop and ask if he had any words of wisdom for him as he was leaving. Now, the youth had done this, had followed the directions of his wife, and so he stopped and talked to the old man and asked him if there was any wisdom that he could share. And the old man said, "You've been very wise to stop and talk to me. And because of this, I'm going to give you 3 important things that I want you to remember. They should come into value for you on your adventure, on your journey." He said, "She who the heart loves is always the most beautiful. Second thing to remember is patience. Patience is the first important thing along the road to finding happiness. And third, he who waits wins. Remember this, and good luck." Well, the youth had gone on his journey. Now, he was in kind of the hands of this very large and powerful Arab man, his 2 sons there as well. And the Arab turned to the youth and said, "Which one of my sons is the most beautiful?" Now, it was an easy choice, for one was very handsome, very beautiful, and the other was not. He was, well, you could almost say that he was ugly. And the youth was just about to say which one he thought was the most beautiful, the one that was, when he thought about the words of the wise man. And he said, "You know, whichever one your heart loves the most, he will be the most beautiful to you. He will be the most beautiful." Well, the Arab, his eyes got bright and he said, "Oh my, you have saved me. You have saved me. I've been cursed. And you don't know how many men have come down into this well. And I've asked them the same question and they always answered it incorrectly. You've saved me, for I was enchanted by a genie to remain here until someone could answer that question correctly. What can I do for you? What can I do for you? I'll do anything." Well, the youth said, "What you could do for me is to help me get back out of the well with enough water for the 80 merchants and their camels." "Oh, that is easy," said the Arab. "Here, here's what you must do. He gave the youth 3 apples, and he said, when you are ready to get pulled up, put 1 apple on the ground. When you're halfway up, let 1 fall. And when you're at the top, let the last one drop. In this way, you will arrive safely back to the earth. And here, have these 3 pomegranates. One is red, one is green, and one is white. Take these with you. They will come in handy as well, I'm sure. With this, the Arab departed. The youth went back to where the water was flowing in the well. He filled his bladder full of water. He put the rope back under his shoulders. He laid an apple on the ground and asked to be hauled up. When he got halfway up, he let 1 apple drop. When he got to the top, he let the last one drop. He was pulled and he got back onto the earth, and you cannot believe how grateful and appreciative all the merchants were, and all the men that worked for the merchants. Well, he was paid as he had been promised, and his master gave him a load of precious goods, as well as the mule that had been promised. They continued on the journey, and once the merchant had finished his business in a town quite a far ways away, he returned to his native land, and our youth, with all of this new earned wealth, was going to go with the master, but wanted to send all that he had earned so far back to his wife and his mother. And so he hired a man to do this. And as he was thinking about the pomegranates, he thought, I should send these back too, because, you know, there's going to be a good chance they're just going to fall out of my turban. And so he packed these pomegranates, which when he went to pull them out, they had transformed from pomegranates into 3 beautiful gems, 1 red, 1 green, and 1 clear. Well, he packed them carefully, packed them with all the gold coins that he had earned, and with the mule, he sent all of this back with this hired man to his wife and his mother. He continued with his master, and the merchant, continued to do business and brought the youth into his fold, basically, and had him do everything, and oversaw his work. And as a result, he shared the profits with him equally, and the young man became quite wealthy. Eventually, the merchant passed away, and his widow begged the youth to stay there and to help her. And so for some time, he did, until one day he woke up and said, I must go. I must go see my wife. And he turned to his master's widow and said, I have to go. If you ever need me, please send for me and I will come. And with this, he mounted a camel and began his journey toward his home. Now, back home, a lot had happened, because 20 years had passed since the time the man left to the time where he mounted that camel and began to ride home. His wife, shortly after he had left, gave birth to a son. And the youth's, now the man's, mother and his wife worked very, very hard to keep their home and to make sure that their son had everything that he needed. Now remember, he had sent a good amount of money back to his wife initially. And, when he first left. And so they had made do until that larger sum of money came in, as well as the 3 precious jewels. Now, the youth's mother, when she saw the precious stones, she was thinking that they were just, well, whatever, rocks. And she wanted to give them to her grandson. And, well, you can imagine how that went down with the princess. She knew the worth of those stones and would not let that happen. But because so much money had come in, she gave her mother-in-law some coins and said, please go to the market and get for him whatever you'd like. And so the mother-in-law was contented, and off she went. Now, suddenly the princess, was doing quite well off, because it was a fairly large sum of money that came in from her husband's exploits in the well, as well as these precious stones. And when she saw the precious stones, she knew that they were of great value. And she made a plan of how to use them. So when her mother-in-law came back, she had wrapped the red and very large gem in a handkerchief that was silver with gold embroidered on the outside. She put it in a silver box and then put that in a wooden box that had been beautifully carved. And she asked her mother-in-law to take the box to the king. And for the gem that was within, she said, I only want you to ask for one thing, and that is permission, with the king's seal on a letter, to do whatever it is you want to do without interference. This is what you should ask as payment for the gem. Well, the mother-in-law set off for the palace, and when she got there, she was brought in, and the king had no recollection of who this woman was. But here she presented the box to the king, and the king saw the gem and was like, his eyes just lit up. He'd never seen anything like it. A jeweler was called in from town, a trusted jeweler, and the king asked, what is the worth of this stone? And the jeweler said, if you were to take a rock and throw it as high as you could in the air and pile up gold to the height that stone had reached, it would not be enough to pay for the worth of this stone. The king wanted it more than ever now. And so he knew that he didn't have enough money in the royal coffers to even pay for it. So he turned to the mother-in-law and asked, what would you like for this stone? What can I give you for it? She said, all I ask is that you give me a note, a letter, with your seal, stating that I can do anything that I want within the kingdom without any hindrance whatsoever. The king was delighted. He thought, this is incredible. I'm getting the stone for basically nothing. So he quickly had the letter drawn up with his seal and handed it to the old woman, and off she went. Now on her way there, the princess had filled her pockets with gold and silver coins and told her that on her way home to distribute those to people in need on the way home. So she did, of course, to the delight of the people who received. I'll leave the story there, and we'll find out what happens next tomorrow. Thanks for joining. Have a good rest of your day.